What's going on, everyone? It's Jeran from Jeranism back with another video for you today. This was my first presentation ever to a science crowd, so it was a little bit intimidating. I don't think I did a great job, but hey, can only get better from here, right? So this was in early March. It was in Los Angeles, California. The details are on the screen. So if you enjoy it and you want, you can tip $1, Cash App. You'll see my cash tag roll through the screen throughout the presentation. So that is it. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I do remind you, as always, do your own research. When you do, you'll never again believe that we can't tell the shape of the ground by looking at the lights in the sky. We most certainly can. Enjoy the presentation. Till next time. Peace.
Soul on pause, now I take the stroll. Breathing deep, city's heartbeat slow. Find my peace in the urban glow. Unplugged from the chaos, remote control. Soul on pause, now I take the stroll. Breathing deep, city's heartbeat slow. Find my peace in the urban glow. Honey in my tea, rhythm in my
Casual now that
all right, well, this has been a wonderful day of wonderful lectures and content, but we've saved the best for last. I've certainly been waiting for this. We're going to talk with, well, Spencer Marks and Jeran Campanella about flat Earth and Antarctica and all kinds of interesting information along those lines. So I'm going to hand it over to Spencer Marks to kick it off. Thank you, Spencer.
Okay, I'm Spencer Marks. I am one of the senior investigators for the Center for Inquiry Investigations Group, like Ross.
your mic's not on.
Test.
There you go. There you go.
Do I need to reintroduce myself?
Yes.
Who the hell are you? I am Spencer Marks. I'm one of the senior investigators from the Center for Inquiry Investigations Group, like Ross. And
IIG,
yes. That's our old term. In science, we have kind of a tenet that says you can adjust your views based on better and newer evidence. Well, to that degree, the person we have on stage here used to believe the Earth was flat. In fact, he was quite a large proponent of that and has a popular YouTube channel. And for a long, long time, he spoke about the Earth was flat. But then, some of you may be familiar with, there was something called the final experiment. That's just the name of the thing they did. A bunch of people went down to Antarctica, which is, by the way, a place where many flat earthers say you can't even go because it's guarded by military and so forth. But our next guest went down to Antarctica, and he saw in December, which of course is the Southern Hemisphere summer, he saw a 24-hour sun, something else that is completely impossible on a flat Earth. So like a good scientist, he adjusted his views based on newer and better evidence. So to that degree, I commend him, and I think everybody should welcome him. This is Jeran Campanella. Jeran, I just want to, by the way, we're going to talk just a couple minutes, and then we're going to actually see a really cool slideshow that Jeran brought. But I just wanted to touch base a little bit and ask some questions. So tell us a little bit about just where you were born, your background, a little bit of how you were raised, where you were raised, and that sort of thing.
I was born in San Jose and raised in Gilroy, California. Born and raised there, or born in San Jose. And then I basically went to Catholic school all the way up till I went to Bellarmine. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's a Catholic Jesuit all-boys Catholic high school in San Jose. And then after that, I went right into working at Long's Drugs. I don't know if people remember the old Long's Drugs. I was a store manager there for quite a few years, and then they became CVS, and I was still with them. And then around 2012, I saw the way that the store was going. It was becoming corporate. They didn't really care about individuality or care about customers anymore. CVS does not care about you, by the way. But so then I quit my job to open up a bookstore. My wife and I, we had a bunch of books. My aunt passed and left me a big collection. So we opened this bookstore, and we forgot that you have to have customers in your online bookstore. So we thought we were going to be Jeff Bezos, but we couldn't get anybody at the store. So luckily we got picked up by an app or two, and we're able to survive like that. But we had looked into religion and decided that it was lies. And so my wife and I kind of said, well, let's start our belief systems from the ground up, and let's work our way to what we can believe. Well, unfortunately, the first thing that we stumbled on was my wife asked me if the world could be flat. And I said, of course not. That's ridiculous. I've flown to the Philippines going west. You've flown to Germany going east. That wouldn't work. There's no way planes could fly around a flat Earth. And it was a couple weeks after that I saw Eric Dubé's what they call the flat Earth map. And I guess that shook me because it broke my brain in the fact that planes can go around it. And so I just told my wife that no, of course not, it's ridiculous that you'd be able to do that. And then I'm looking at a map that shows that planes could go around a flat Earth. So then I started looking into, from there, evidence to kind of debunk it, and was having a hard time finding that. And then some things started to actually show me that it could be correct. And then you kind of go on that journey. From there, it was just, too many people emailing you and saying, oh, I've been thinking like this for a long time, and thank you, you brought me back to God, or whatever it was, that just kind of pushes you further and further into that mindset. And then you go through a confirmation bias where you no longer look at evidence objectively, you are looking for your truth. And I think that's very easy to do. It's very easy even if you're a flat earther, people might think, how do people become flat earthers? Well, if you are looking for that evidence, you can find, and you just disregard stuff that doesn't line up with it. So, there's a lot of debunker channels on YouTube and things like that, but they don't capture you because you don't want to hear derogatory things about you. You don't want to hear that you're wrong. So you just kind of avoid those videos, and you end up watching nothing but other flat earthers promoting the same thing. So you just lose touch with reality. In a way.
So, in the flat Earth world, and I'm very familiar with it because I've been researching this thing for probably 9-10 years myself. But the flat Earthers have a lot of sort of associated beliefs, like gravity doesn't exist. They have to believe that because gravity has to. It just doesn't make sense on a flat Earth for many reasons I won't bore you with. I'm going to assume, I don't know, I'm asking you, have you, once you came around to believing the Earth was a globe, have you renounced those beliefs too, like gravity doesn't exist? And so
it wasn't that gravity doesn't exist. Obviously things fall. You just have a different explanation for it. So the flat Earth explanation is usually, well, all items have weight, and that they're in a medium that doesn't sustain it, like air, so it goes down, and then you have the questions of why down.
Right.
So there's a lot of hoop jumping that you're doing, clearly.
Sure.
But no, once I've accepted the sphere, from there things can I don't have to know how gravity works. Scientists don't know how gravity works. So it's okay just to say I accept that as a truth, and that it must be if the Earth's a sphere.
When you went to Antarctica, was there at all a concern? I know you were certainly concerned, or you believed that the sun would not be up 24 hours. Was there a concern that you would be turned away because many flat earthers say, oh, you can't even go to Antarctica because they'll turn you away with the military?
It's a little bit of it's kind of iffy because you really can't, what they're saying is that you can't independently go and investigate Antarctica, which is true. But it's true of any country. I can't independently go to Bangladesh and just show up and start investigating Bangladesh, and I can't go to Australia. So there is laws, you have to have your passport and things like that. So Antarctica works the same way. There is these bases that they take tours, and so once I realized we were going to a existing company, ALE is the name of it, Antarctic Logistics and Expeditions, and if you're looking to go, I would definitely give them a call. They're awesome. They'll actually work out with you whatever you want. If you have a certain thing you want to do that's different, you have to have money to do it. But
they aren't cheap.
They're not cheap. So no, I think that once I realized that we were going to one of those set up spots, then it was there was no worry about getting stopped. I don't think I was somebody who said ever that they would stop you, just that you couldn't go by yourself, and you wouldn't. Flying over it, you realize why you don't want to do that. You will die.
Yeah, of course. But I think technically, just because it's so barren.
Right.
I mean, if you really wanted to do it, you could actually go to the continent without anybody knowing, but it would not, like you say, it's not a bright thing to do.
No.
There's no McDonald's.
And they're not going to save you. I mean, there's going to be no way for you to get out if something happens. There's no grocery store or anything. So, I mean, you would have to have provisions. You would have to have, skidoo and a bunch of, and then there's crevasses all over the place that are death traps if you were just to be walking. So ALE talks about if you're going to go on a certain path, they go first with this, I want to call it expedition truck that has sensors and radar and can actually see that the ground is solid, and then they map it out for you.
Wow. So
that's what costs so much money.
Fantastic. Well, I don't want to delay too much more. I want you to get to the presentation. Anyway, there you go. Jeran, come.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So yes, let me cut this open. And we'll see if the first slide works today.
Yeah, press the down one.
All right, there we go. So basically a journey through evidence and learning what evidence is and what it's not. And I want to try and bridge the gap between people who are, I want to say skeptical, but I understand that that's not the correct word, because I think you guys would consider yourselves skeptics, whereas from our line of thinking, skeptics would even be skeptical of science, right? So, and I'm not saying you're not, I mean, you are skeptical, but I want to bridge that gap between people who don't trust science and people who understand its importance. So for a decade, believe it or not, I was a dedicated flat earther. I used to host shows, host debates, go to events like I've met these guys at, tests, experiments, and I spent years doing that and spreading the word. And that's the most upsetting thing now, looking at what's going on and seeing the community the way it is realizing that I was a part of that, and that I owe, some people some apologies, and I owe, the world kind of my goal is to actually bridge that gap and get some people to see what I see so that they aren't stuck in a very difficult place, which is what Flat Earth has become. Flat Earth no longer takes any evidence that goes against what they believe. So that was real obvious. Basically, I found that out by going to Antarctica, coming back and hearing everybody say, oh, it's fake. You faked it. It was CGI. It was, well, I was like, no, I was there. Hello. And you just realize that the reason why is because the evidence that I brought back goes against the flat earth. So you learn real quickly, oh, you'll always be a flat earther. Whoever's a flat earther today will always be a flat earther, because if anybody brings new information, they're going to deny it, call it fake, and just move on. And so that's not safe at all, and it becomes what people call a cult. It's what it is. When I announced that I was no longer a flat earther, I was ostracized immediately, called a shill, kicked out of the groups, and people that were my friends for 10 years, just in a heartbeat, turn their back on you like nothing. So you realize none of them were actually friends. So then I went down to Antarctica, and thank you to Will Duffy, if anybody knows who that is. It's a pastor out of Colorado, who basically had a friend who was a flat earther, and he tried to conversate with her to get her to change her mind, and she was just steadfast in her position. And so he kind of tried to come up with some way of definitively showing. And that happened when he would watch flat earth content, and he saw that flat earthers would say that there was no 24-hour sun in the south. And then you would watch globe earthers say, no, there clearly is. So he came up with the idea of taking people down to Antarctica and finding out once and for all, and thought that would kind of squash the debate. So for me, everybody else turned it down. First, it was basically they did a poll to see who the audience wanted to send to Antarctica, because the pastor was going to pay. By the way, it's a $35,000 trip, so something I certainly would never be able to afford in my life. So the first person that was selected turned it down. I was in second place, and as soon as he said it, to me, that's what I'm there for, right? So this is the chance to prove or disprove what I've been saying for 10 years. So I jumped at the opportunity in a heartbeat, but I realized after that everybody else was saying, don't go, why are you going, this is a trap. And I'm like, no, it's going to tell me one way or the other. And they're like, well, if you see the sun circle, that doesn't mean it's not flat. And I'm like, no, it does. And then that started, about the 6 months before the trip, was really people trying to combat me to get me to say that if I did see it circling, that I would still remain a flat earther. And because I said no, they had already, before the trip even happened, started saying, oh, he's working with them, oh, he's involved with the guys. So it is a continent. It is at the bottom of the globe. It's not a ice ring, as I might have taught before. So we're just looking at a journey through evidence and how skepticism and real-world observation reshaped my beliefs, and how I went from a flat earther to a critical thinker, who I was, who I am now. We'll talk about seeing is believing and how hard reality hits. We'll talk about how the truth movement can become a trap and the problem with truth communities. We'll talk a little bit about the idea of trusting the science and where I think we need to bridge a gap that is currently there that I think maybe you guys don't realize is there. The issues that science has caused. Debunk dishonesty, why fake science hurts real science. We'll talk about that. Thinking critically, how to question everything but accept what holds true. And then I have a message to science advocates and the issues that science has caused, and we can bring that all together. And then ultimately reality wins, and reality is the ultimate arbiter of truth, right? Not what you want to be true, which is what a lot of people go through. So we talked a little bit about my journey into flat earth. That's basically it. Once I remember the very first thing I noticed was there was a lack of north-south circumnavigation. So if you've ever seen the flat earth map, which we have a slide in a little bit, I thought, well, this map clearly can be debunked by showing that people can circumnavigate north-south. But looking into that, there's not a lot of records of that. There's somebody who did it in the late 70s, early 80s, and that's Sir Ranulph Fiennes, who they call the greatest explorer ever. And so that's an example of something that I looked into, and I saw that in a court case that he admitted to faking accidents on an expedition. So I took that and I just erased everything he did, right? Because this person, he lied, so I'm not going to accept that he actually circumnavigated. He could have been lying about that. But when you do that, you're really, again, now looking back, I'm like, oh, he definitely did. He probably did. He just also faked an accident and had to admit it in court. Not a big deal. Why I was so sure I was right is because of confirmation bias. You no longer look for the evidence that goes and flies in your face. And you'll see when I realized some things, it was profound that, and I actually feel stupid. I feel very stupid that I wasted 10 years on this. I could have known this within a year if I just would have accepted what people said, or at least followed up on what they said and not dismissed it outright. So we'll talk about that. The Antarctica moment was the moment that it all came to me. I remember the pastor, we were on the plane coming back from Antarctica. We landed in Punta Arenas, and we're getting off the plane, and I told him, I'm like, hey, Duffy. He's like, yeah. I'm like, the Earth's a sphere. He's like, what? I said, the Earth's a sphere. And he goes, no way. I'm like, yeah. So he was pretty excited about that. I think that his goal was just to have one person turn. He thought if he can get one person to change their mind, that maybe there'd be a cascading effect. And that has happened. I don't know if you guys know Patricia Steere has stepped out, no longer a flat earther. Robbie Davidson, who was in charge of the first 3 conferences, has stepped out, no longer a flat earther. Paul on the plane, no longer a flat earther.
Wow.
There's a guy named Melodome who stepped out, Rose 777. So a lot of people are seeing the issues. And then there's this new group of flat earthers that basically is in a la-la land where, we don't know what the sun's doing. We don't know where the sun is. It's apparent. It's not a real sun. It's a figment. They're starting to talk about something called dome refraction. I don't even know where this came from. It's their excuse to explain why things are not where they should be. And the power of real-world observations, and then why it matters. So how I became a critical thinker is exactly as I said, realizing that, and it took a lot of things. When I came back, my thought was, okay, I'm going to slowly kind of introduce this to my audience and kind of see if there's somebody who wants to go back to the drawing board. Maybe we can create a new map. And in doing that, I kind of really started to skeptically look at things different. I could just tell my brain was different. There was like a mental block that a lot of people talk about that I can't even, people are like, write a book about it. Your brain is protecting itself from what it currently believes to be true. Any information that's trying to come from outside is just disregarded. It's almost like your brain doesn't want to even consider it a possibility. But once you see something, and that's why seeing is believing, once the evidence is right in front of you, that mental block just gets kicked right through. And then when it's not there, all of a sudden now you're reevaluating everything that you previously thought, and you become a critical thinker. So seeing all these people call it fake and looking at their excuses for evidence made me realize none of these people can research anything. They're terrible. So right away, all these people that I had for years kind of depended on or believed what they said. Now I have to question everything that they did. So I'd start to look into one thing that they said or something. Maybe it's a long distance observation that they made. I would go and check the numbers and really get down to it and realize, no, the globe says that that's perfectly viewable from that distance. But before, because they lied about maybe the distance by a couple miles, they lied about their height by 100 feet, you would be able to justify where somebody in a flat earth would say, the earth could be flat because we can see too far. That's another thing. I mean, if you listen to flat earthers, if you ask what is your main evidence, they're going to tell you water lies level. They're going to say that we see too far. And both those things are true on the globe. We see further than the geometric horizon because the atmosphere works as a lens. It allows you to see further because of refraction. And so these things that are, water lies level, I don't think that flat earthers understand size. I don't think that because I didn't. I mean, I don't think I truly understood. We think of a basketball as a ball, right? A baseball, something small, a yoga ball, even a beach ball. But that doesn't describe the earth. The earth is so big that the curvature is so little that you don't notice it. We don't need to worry about it when we build things. We don't need to worry about it at all. Even canals, which was a big thing for me. Like how did the canal drops, so many, how could that work on a globe earth? But then you realize that one of the numbers I've been telling my audience lately, for 660 feet, which is 2 football fields end to end, that's only 1/8 inch of curvature. So if you hold an inch in your hand, now do 1/8, that's like 2 dimes stacked, or maybe 2 nickels stacked on top of each other. That's the curvature for an entire 2 football fields. And then if you went to the next 2 to build them, you don't need to worry about those 2. You build the next 2,
and there's still an 1/8 inch of curvature. And then you go to the next 2. So you could just build those football fields all the way around the earth, come back to where you started, and you never noticed a curve. There is no curve to even notice. So when they say water lies level and the water doesn't curve, well, yeah, water lies level locally, and we don't take a line from there and say, okay, let's see if water lies level over there. You go over there, and water lies level again. So pretty incredible what the earth actually is. And once you have that mental block kicked in, you realize that you were teaching things incorrectly. The way you taught people is incorrect. So the comfort of certainty is just, what I meant by that is that there is a certain comfort in flat earthers get to the point where they say, we know the earth is not a sphere. And that feels comforting. Like, yeah, we know it's not a sphere, and it could be flat, it could be something else, but at least we know what it's not. And there's a comfort in that. And in fact, one of the things that was very surprising to me is I was always afraid of flying. Just, hey, I still would fly. It's not like it stopped me, but I was a nervous wreck. Like, I'm not religious anymore, but I would say to Our Father 10 times on every flight, even though I'm not religious anymore. But when I became a flat earther and got on the first plane for the first time, I no longer had a fear of flying. Wow. So, and it was kind of, I understood planes flying above a flat plane, and it just made more sense. Well, now, understanding how the globe works, it's the same. Planes are flying above the flat plane of the earth. Again, it's every 660 feet. You're only going down 1/8 inch. The plane does it on its own. You'll hear a flat earther say, well, the planes don't nose down. And you're right. If a plane noses down, it descends. So, of course, you don't nose down when you're flying an airplane. The moment I knew I had to change was the moment that I saw everything and said, oh, man, for me, I'm going to have to go back and tell people that I was wrong. I thought that I was going to have some people join me. A guy's name is Austin Whitsitt. They went with me. He saw the exact same things I do. He's going to stay as a flat earther. He thinks there's enough wrong with the heliocentric model that it could still be flat, even though it cannot. And this is, if you watch my channel today, yesterday I did a video on, I said I was going to make a prediction for flat Earth for the next 25 years, up till 2050. And it was kind of a joke, because for every year I just put, you will continue to provide nothing to humanity, you will continue to be a sore on humanity's ass, you will lose family, you'll lose friends, you'll lose money, and you'll get nowhere. It's like a hamster wheel that you run, you think you're doing something, and then you get off and you look at it and you're like, oh, I'm still where I started. So for 10 years, that's what happened to me, right? At the beginning to now, if you said, well, what did you accomplish? Not a lot. I kind of spun my wheels and didn't do much. So that is the shift to critical thinking. And why real skepticism requires adaptation, you always want to adjust your opinions based on the evidence, and not say, here's what's true, and now let me go find things that can show me that that's true. It's not the best way of doing that. Seeing is believing, obviously, because the 24-hour sun at Union Glacier cannot work on a flat Earth. And there was people who right away came out. Dean Odell is this crazy pastor, I don't even know, Alabama, I think he's out of, who came out with a video the next day saying it was Satan that was the sun, that Satan knew that we were going to be there and cleared the sky. And that scares me, because the fact that that person can say that and get away with it is just scary. He's got to. How does he have a congregation? How are people there watching him for him to say that? Because if you go that route, well, then anything can be explained by Satan, and you throw science out the window, right? The sun setting right to left. This is one that makes me feel so stupid. On the Earth, if you're in the north, like most of us, I'm sure, we see the sun set every day left to right. Right? It goes from the left to the right. In the south, the sun goes right to left. Now, that right there destroys the flat Earth. The flat Earth has a sun that goes clockwise around an Earth. So it makes sense why flat Earth took off, because in the north, people might look at that map and go, oh, that matches what the sun does. Okay, well, I think the Earth could be flat. If you're in the south, I don't know how you could ever believe in a flat Earth. The sun goes the other way. So how could it get to... So one way I would describe that, and we can look at that in a little bit, is picture being at the tip of South America where we were at Union Glacier, at Punta Arenas, and you're looking west, okay? And the sun it's December 21st, so you're at the Tropic of Capricorn, that's where the sun is. It's at its southernmost point. So clearly on a flat Earth map, the sun needs to go to the right to get to Australia over there, but we see the sun going down that way. And that was shocking, because it was like completely in the face of everything that I had been teaching and what I thought. And then you start thinking, well, I know that the sun is above the Tropic of Capricorn, and I know that those places, Australia, South Africa, are on the Tropic of Capricorn, but it looks like it goes that way, where I'm thinking it goes to the right. So when then you kind of start putting two together, and you're like, oh, wait, if it goes over there, Australia must be underneath us. That's the only way that it could get the sun. So it just kind of all unfolds right in front of you. That's a hard thing to explain to flat earthers, though. The South Celestial Pole, another thing that, as flat earthers, that doesn't work. So I believe that it moved around, meaning that if you're in let's say you're in Australia looking at the South Celestial Pole, and it's nighttime, that throughout the night it would kind of move to the next continent, sees it in their south, and then it kind of move. When you're there in Jeranism and you realize, oh, this is just like the North Star. It's identical to Polaris, but the stars turn around the other way. And then you start thinking, well, I know that I've never been to the North Pole, but I know the North Pole exists because the North Celestial Pole exists, and that's what's below it. So then you have to think, well, I saw the South Celestial Pole. No, I did not get to go to the South Pole, but I was 600 miles from there. And you can tell by the South Celestial Pole. It's right there. So it's beneath it. And why no flat earther has ever documented it? Well, obviously it's expensive. And so that's kind of an excuse that they use to just say nobody can go there. But that's not true. There's hundreds of people that go every year, right? If not 1,000 people, tourists that go every year. This is me here at Union Glacier. This is kind of cool because this was, I want to say I was the first one to ever live stream from Antarctica. That might not be true, but I can't find anything on YouTube that shows somebody live streaming. This is right when we got there. We landed. They brought us to the camp. And this is, you'll see, that's Will Duffy, the pastor there.
We made it. We're here.
Tell them about the flight.
#1 tracked flight on Flight Radar 24.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
Amazing, amazing.
Pretty dope. It's not cold at all. Look, everyone's barehanded, shirtless.
So now there's people that watch this
No gloves,
and
no hat,
said it's
literally.
fake.
These polar boots are also getting a little hot too.
They are getting a little
You're getting a little toasty.
And you guys said I was crazy because I wanted to do a polar plunge.
I'm clearly Californian because I'm still wearing these gloves.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally doable to do a polar plunge.
And it was like
Can't we just do polar like
between 5 and 15 degrees.
Snow
I mean,
angels?
not too bad. But.
Definitely put it on the polar plunge.
So there's your sun, and that is no, I don't see the sun. Hello, where are you, sun?
It's so bright there.
Yeah, it's north.
Can't even
I'll
put
show
your
you where the
glasses
north
down.
mark
Obviously,
is.
the whole ground is reflective.
Triangle over there.
So just pointing out where north is. Obviously, the sun
The
was
Triangle Mountain.
northwest.
Yeah.
And we were just waiting to see
Right
if it
there.
would come around and
Triangle
circle
right
us,
there.
which it did for 4
North.
days.
So the sun's there. Which it definitely is tracking the opposite direction. It's moving.
Right.
this
So we
way.
see the sun move left to right.
And,
if you're at the North Pole,
it's
it moves
supposedly
left to
gonna
right. At the
Go
South
behind
Pole.
this mountain here, if you can
Right
see it.
to
which-
left?
I mean, this is crazy. I know you can't see it good on the screen. That mountain looks like it's right there.
It's actually like
You can
4
just touch it,
miles
but
away.
They say it's like
Wow.
a few miles away. They say that let me show you see if you can see the glacier.
Kind of hard to see this, but
You
this
see
is
the glacier?
it's in bad quality, but it's 10 miles away.
So the glacier that's right behind the sign right there is 10 miles away. It looks as clear as can be right there. You can see it. So what we did is we flew in and we ducked into these. See that brown?
And when you land
It's
directly
so
on the
bright.
ice.
If you take your glasses
The
off, for a
plane lands on
second-
the ice.
Holy smoke, that's too bright. We flew in, and then your plane kind of tucks in there, and then they drove us by vehicle here. That's like the medics, doctor's office. That's the red flags. If you go past those, they say you'll get hit by a plane, so don't go past the red flags. There's 2 smaller planes. There's a larger military plane. Can you zoom in?
When we went there,
So not too bad.
the plane that took us there is a
these are the
757,
tents.
a real jet, and there was only 10 of us on the flight. It's probably the best flight I'll ever take in my life. You have a whole 6 rows to yourself if you want. You see, oops. Okay, so this is a time lapse of the 24-hour sun. People want to see that. It's beautiful. I will forever miss that and remember that. So that's south. So right there, the sun is above Australia's head. When it's in the south, and obviously you're in Antarctica and on a flat Earth map, as I'll show you in a little bit, that doesn't make any sense. The end.
How are you doing the tracking?
This is Dave McKeegan. He has a all azimuth mount, powered one. I also have a solar quest right there that tracks the sun as well. So yeah, it was unbelievable. And people, watch this. We had 10 cameras. See, all these cameras are all recording at the same time in real time. And we got back and presented all this information, and the flat earthers called it fake. And for me, that's a problem because even as a flat earther, I know that a lot of cameras like that then it makes it more difficult to fake. Obviously, and again, for people who might be conspiracy theorists and believe that the moon landings were faked, okay, well, there's only one camera, and I could see where you can come up with that. But when you're talking about this, it's much different. There's 10 cameras. We're live streaming. you can check each camera to verify. And there were some people who actually went through, and because if you have two cameras and you know the distance between them, you can actually take things in the distance, draw a triangle, and figure out the distances. So there was people who started to do that to prove the people wrong who were saying that the mountains were a backdrop, and they said, no, if it's a backdrop and we have two cameras, known distance, and we draw a line to that mountain, that will eliminate the possibility of a backdrop, because it will actually give you the distance to the backdrop, not the distance to the mountain. But they were able to show that, no, the mountains are between 5 miles and infinity from where we were. So this is a good map to show you here. So this is what I believed up until December was the map of the Earth. I thought that this is where we lived, that Antarctica was an ice ring. So I put a couple arrows here just so I could show you some ideas here. So if you look at the red dot over there at the bottom, that is where we were at Punta Arenas so we had to go to Punta Arenas, and the way that they set up these trips is you have to arrive there 3 days early and leave 3 days after the trip. And they do that in case there's weather problems. You might fly out early, you might fly back, which we did. We actually came back a day early because the weather went bad the next day. But so we're there at Punta Arenas for 3 days before we went to Antarctica, and we're watching the sun rise and set. Now again, the yellow arrow is the way that the sun would have to go. And we know that that's a fact because people live there and it goes in that order. So there's no question there. The green lines are what the Tropic of Capricorn is, right? It's the southernmost spot that the sun goes to. Those are the only places that would have no shadow on December 21st. Nothing south of there would have no shadow ever because the sun never goes there. So those are facts. So one thing I can say right away to flat earthers is I can say there is no other map. A lot of them are under some assumption right now. There'll be another map. We'll come up with another map. And it's like, no. We know that the North Pole exists. We know that the North Celestial Pole exists. We know that the continents have to be laid out like that. So anytime you draw a new map, it's going to be an AE map. Once this has been debunked, the Earth is a sphere. It's just the way it works.
Let people know what the AE map is.
Oh, sorry. So this is it's called an azimuthal equidistant map. It's basically a globe projection. And the reason that it works well as I don't want to say a lie, the reason that it's good, easy to use to convince people that the Earth is flat is because the entire North is almost identical. There's no difference between the North on the globe and the North on, and it actually makes more sense to people because if you've ever flown from, say, New York to London, you probably wondered, why did I go across Greenland? Mm-hmm. Because on a globe, what they'll show you, they'll back this big arc, showing you this big arc. Well, that's because that's the Great Circle route. But on here, since it's been flattened, it's just a straight line. So it's very easy to convince a person that the flat Earth is more in line with reality because you'll say on the plane, you're just flying straight. So we just fly straight there. And people start looking at flight routes and say, oh man, this does make more sense. And there's a couple of things for me that I thought, okay, so you look at your senses, we don't feel like we're spinning. Well, flat Earth says we're not spinning. We don't feel like we are curved. We don't see a curve. Well, flat Earth says they're not curved. So there's enough that caught me as interesting that I was able to kind of buy into it and then start searching for evidence of it. And then anything you find, right? Anything, maybe a scientist makes a mistake. Neil deGrasse Tyson, I think, said one time that from 120,000 feet high, you don't see the curvature of the Earth. Well, all these globe believers are telling us we see the curve from the plane. And then we can easily say, you're lying. Neil deGrasse Tyson says you can't. You guys are saying you can't. So it's just very easy to pick and choose what you start promoting and what you leave alone. So the sad part was when we were at the red dot looking at the sun needs to go where the yellow line is, meaning the sun should go to the right, but it went to the left, like the purple arrow. And then it rose where the purple arrow is rising. So that is not making any sense. And then when we went down to the blue dot, which is us in Antarctica, then the sun's doing what the red line's doing. So none of that jives with this map because we know that when the sun gets here, that it's over here. So now what Flat Earth does is Flat Earth actually says that there is an apparent sun that appears over there. Now it's very easy to make fun of that because I just keep saying, oh, so it just happens to be where the globe predicts. That's where, the globe predicts there's one sun that's over here, and you're saying, no, there's actually two suns, and one of them just happens to be where the globe predicts. Okay, that seems funny. So it was very easy for me. The South Celestial Pole plus the South Pole. By the way, another thing I saw when we were in Antarctica is the sun is at a tilt, right? Slight tilt, meaning it was at 35 degrees at its high in the north and 15 degrees at its south. And I realized by walking towards the southernmost part of the sun that if I just kept doing that, I would get to the South Pole. And that was kind of groundbreaking to me. And then understanding, other people in Antarctica, they could all do that and we'd all end up at the same place. And then you're like, oh shit, there's the sphere. So it's just sad when you spend 10 years trying to explain away everything you see and trying to make excuses for things. And then you're just there and there's no more excuses to be made. And then to find out, I was telling Toon that, MC Toon is a flat earth debunker on YouTube. And I was telling him he goes, oh, that's exactly how Amundsen and Scott got to the South Pole. He said, they didn't have GPS, and a compass doesn't work there because the actual South Pole magnet is out in the ocean south of Australia. So he was saying that's how they all did it. And then if you remember the Great Race that they talked about in the early 1900s, those people came from two different sides of the continent, and then they actually got to the same place. They actually found each other. Well, one of them was dead, but they found each other because the tent was erected exactly where the sun becomes balanced, right? So at the South Pole, it's the only place that the sun doesn't change its tilt. So just realizing that as I walked towards the South Pole where the sun is at its lowest, every 69 miles, it's going to tilt up by 1 degree until eventually I was at a place where it would be above my head even the whole time. So once you realize the South Pole is real, you just kind of run out of ways to make excuses now. The truth becoming a trap is definitely true. It's probably the scariest thing that I see is I'm trying to get people out of it right now by telling them there's what is going to take you out of flat earth if you don't accept evidence that goes against your belief. And that really just showed me a lot, like how many people are doing that in the world, that you have a certain belief and you're steadfast in it because you only accept what fits and not what goes against it, which is really what you should use to be a barometer of where you're at. The illusion of open inquiry. So the ideas of flat earth are really a distrust of authority, which I even personally don't have a problem with, but to a unhealthy level, right? To the point where you only can believe things that you see. You can't trust anybody else's evidence. And I realize now if flat earth was in charge of the world, we wouldn't have cars yet. It would just be a disaster. People would be fighting each other. Just nonsense beliefs that nothing is going through any kind of a peer review. And that's really what flat earth is it's just a bunch of people that let each other get away with stuff as long as you're promoting flat earth. So you could even say something wrong and no one's going to come out and attack you. They're going to just let it go because you're a flat earther. And it's really like a team thing more than it is about truth. And that's sad to see it because you're like, man, was I a part of this for all these years? The cost of leaving, how they isolate themselves, that's just because of people calling you crazy, right? So if you go to Thanksgiving and your family says you're nuts, cousin Jimmy believes in the flat earth, you just slowly move yourself to another part of the house, and it's the same thing is true in your social life. You only really want to be around people that are like-minded. Like I said, why we don't watch debunking videos is we don't want to be called names. Same thing is true in your social life. So if you have two friends and one friend accepts you as a flat earther, but the other one wants to make fun of you, you're just going to gravitate towards the one that accepts you. The cycle of reinforced beliefs is just terrible. It's just, there's a guy right now, his name's Stephen Alonzo. He claims to be a PhD. He's not. He claims to be a pilot. He's not. He's just a lying grifter on the internet who's a flat earther. But he would say things like, when we were about to go down there, he said, oh, actually, every flat earth map predicts a 24-hour sun. So I hear that, I'm like, what? No, they don't. It's impossible. Well, the thing I started hearing is then everybody was saying it. Like it was a fact. Just because he said it, now it gets picked up by everybody, and now you have to argue with them and say, no, that's not correct. Another one is they've just started saying, you can't tell the shape of the ground by looking at the lights in the sky. Now, this is something that is made up by flat earthers. There's no reason why we would exclude evidence. Do we check urine to see if a woman's pregnant? Well, yes. It's okay to look somewhere else for something because there's signs in the urine that the woman's pregnant. So it's the same thing as the ground. We can look at other things. We don't have to just test the ground only. If you have a known orbit of something like the sun, it's a known orbit for thousands of years, you can use that as a measuring stick. And time anybody gives you a map, you can look at the map and say, does this jive with the known orbit of the sun? And if it doesn't, you can turn the map back in and say, this is not where I live. The map is false. So that's what they call falsifying. So I don't believe in proof, but I do believe you can falsify things, and we've falsified the flat earth, in my opinion. So why truth must be more important than identity? Yeah, I mean, I was watching a show last night, and they were talking about me, and they said, Jeran, this is what happens to traitors, and it goes on. But so that's how they think of it. They don't think of it as, oh, Jeran, saw evidence that made him. It's I'm a traitor. I must work for the other side. I'm involved with the other side. Kind of scary. The idea of trust the science. So I have a couple things here that I think is important to point out, because these are reasons that I stayed a flat earther. There are reasons that flat earth has a distrust of science. And when we try and bring these things up, it's the thing that's kind of hard for science people to hear or see, because there are facts that, for instance, there's Stephen Hawking's Genius program, faked their experiment to prove the curvature of the earth. That is not smart, because what it does is it creates ammo for conspiracy theorists that you will never get back from them. Meaning, the very first question I get asked now when I say I'm a globe believer is they say, what? Why did Stephen Hawking fake his experiment? I can't answer that question. So it becomes very difficult that if that wouldn't happen, if there was just everybody's being up and up. Now, what I hear from the science community is it's just a television show. So it's meant to be entertainment, like, okay, but it's on PBS, it's supposed to be for learning. And as a flat earther, there's only been two, at least that I can think of, mainstream attempts to show the curvature of the earth. There's the Stephen Hawking, and then there's the Nat Geo that both these gentlemen were involved in. I'm going to show that video as well. That's another thing that flat earthers consider fake, okay? And we're going to watch both those, and I'll show you why, and then show people why it's important that we don't do that, because that's going to be the hardest thing for you guys to get back. And again, I get it, but we'll look at that. Why fake science hurts real science, that should be obvious. The need for honest, repeatable tests, right. We're going to look at John Tiller, I think his name is, Timmer. He's the head of science at Ars Technica, where he's actually making a video where he makes fun of flat earthers, saying, why do they have this unhealthy trust or distrust of authority and of scientists? And then he uses as an example, the video I'm about to show you is fake. So what that does is it gaslights conspiracy theorists, meaning it actually makes them think that science is against them, because it's an assault on your intelligence, really. And I will show you that. The need for honest people, then when science communication fails. So this is the first video I'm going to show you. This is the Nat Geo. It's got 6.2 million views. No flat earther will ever get 6.2 million views. It's impossible. So when you think of that I want you guys to kind of think of it from a flat earther's perspective. When they're watching this, it looks like an attack on their belief.
Did it work?
So
it's starting?
Hey, look it.
Okay, so the test is starting. The test is starting right now.
Now, I wish I would
At
pause
first,
this, but
all the stripes are clearly visible.
we'll just look at this
But
first.
sure enough, as the boat reaches the horizon,
So
the
she said
stripes
reaches the
begin to
horizon, but the
disappear,
horizon is behind the
one
boat.
by one.
Let me show you again.
It's pretty amazing. You can actually see it pretty clearly with this camera here. And you see that the red stripe that was at the bottom has completely disappeared, and it's now getting closer to sort of the middle green stripe that is.
So we've lost about 1.5 stripes.
Right. So this can only happen why?
Because of the curvature of the earth.
Okay, so we said we lost. So we lost
Mark
1.5
Sargent and the other
stripes.
flat earthers
Stripes.
have a very different interpretation of
And then
the results.
basically this is just Mark Sargent saying
So
we
you
don't
don't
believe
think
it.
that what we're seeing is actually real? You think it's because of heat?
Absolutely heat.
Does anyone here in flat earth believe
He actually says now that I've been paid off and I've been given a house.
Anyone?
So he told his audience.
It's not fair either.
Not true. But okay, so here's the problem with that particular experiment. And I don't know why this happened, but if you look at this board before it went out in the water, you'll notice there's what flat earthers call an optical illusion. The reason for that is the black line looks like it's in the middle, but it's not, right? There's three white, red, white on top of the black, but then just white, red on the bottom, okay? So when that sign goes out, the water barely covers the bottom red stripe, but when she asks Ross, he says we've lost a stripe and a half, which is not true. Sure.
Just really interesting aside. I made that flag there, that target, and the only reason I used those colors was just because they were different contrast. I had no more thought into it than that just different contrast. But I was going to say, in the flat Earth community, I saw online a conspiracy theory that somehow the colors were like Nazi or something. I was like creating some kind of Nazi memorabilia, and I was like, no.
It's one of those things where, what is the saying? Like, never ascribe to malice. Right. So it's easier to understand that this is just an accident. It's not an optical illusion. Nobody was trying to fool flat earthers. But it even fooled Ross in the way that he says in it when they're asked how many stripes are gone, and he says we've lost 1.5 stripes. When the only thing they ever lost was the bottom of the red.
Well,
So
the white was compressed, and Mark Sargent didn't disagree with that either, or any flat earther standing there.
no, not there.
They all agreed.
Yeah, I think I don't think anybody saw that. It was after that this came out.
And this has been edited too, so, you know, like, I don't know if they were grabbing the footage at the exact same moment that we were
So
seeing.
that's kind of what I'm talking about.
But
right?
everyone around agreed, looking at that screen in the sun, that we could only see half of the white stripe.
Half of what white stripe?
The bottom one.
Oh, got you. So the video might be edited, right? I mean,
Well, it definitely is.
right. It's not the actual test.
I will show you how much it's edited.
Right.
When Marianne Van Zandt, whatever, asked me, and I turn and say, she says it's starting, and I said yes. I was actually on the boat in the middle of the Salton Sea. How am I saying yes?
See,
to
I don't know that.
Yeah, I'm on the damn boat. So that clip where she asked, "Is it starting?" That had to do with a prior test where we were floating balloons out across the.
Oh, I
Salton
remember
Sea.
that.
Yeah. So that's when I said yes, it's starting. I couldn't possibly have said it during this segment because I'm on the boat.
Right. So more importantly, you can see that is basically what the show shows as the most it's ever covered. So if you go watch the documentary or the film from Nat Geo, it never shows more than that. So as a flat earther, you're looking at that saying the bottom red is covered, and also the horizon is back here. Notice where the white arrows are pointed? So the things would get covered by the curvature of the Earth at the horizon, not in front of it. So as a flat earther, you can look at this and see the dots I put here. Those dots look like it's a wave, and the wave is covering the bottom of that board, not the horizon which is behind it, which would be where the boat would start going over the curvature. You can't see past the horizon, so how would you be able to see water past what's covering? So again, this is very easy to dismiss, and being that it's a big 6 million view video, and it's kind of one of the only times that mainstream has tried to show this, flat earthers easily dismiss it, and I would say that this has probably created flat earthers, because you can show them this and then they say, oh, they're lying about it, so therefore, whoops, I went the wrong way. It must be that the Earth is flat. This is the Stephen Hawking film. This is one that is important to the show because it's got hundreds of millions of views.
But I can't see it.
And you'll notice he's saying here he can't see the helicopter. It's hid behind the curvature of the Earth. They've landed.
Okay, Joy, go ahead and lift off.
They plan to ascend until Jim can see them on the horizon, then they'll tell him their altitude.
Let me know when you can see us on spots of the horizon.
So as a flat earther, you are skeptical of this right away, right? You're going to watch it, you're skeptical. Oh, are they going to show us the curvature of the Earth? This was their chance to. You see the helicopter come back. You're like, okay, it was behind the water.
How many feet are we above the lake?
And then he says how far it was above the lake.
24 feet.
That was probably the clue that made us start to look into this when he said 24 feet. That is the curvature of 6 miles, but not with a 3-foot telescope height. So right away, flat earthers are onto something. They're saying, nope, you wouldn't be able to hide a helicopter from that distance at that height. And we'll see why here in a second. So the problem becomes, if you're going to be if you're going to be PBS, if you're going to be the Discovery Channel, if you're going to be Stephen Hawking, even though it's a TV show, flat earthers don't look at it that way. They look at it as this is your chance to show the curvature of the Earth, right? You're on national television, and we're going to see here in a second that that scene is faked. The scene is not a real scene because they've actually used CGI to input the helicopter. I'll show you that in a second. And John Timmer right now John Timmer, I think his name is trying to get in contact with the producer. Notice here, these are 2 different timestamps in the film. Okay? Notice that the water is identical. But in one scene there's a helicopter, in the other scene there's not. The water is identical. That right there is impossible in reality. So what you've done is you've now created something that flat earthers can forever point to and say, this has been faked.
Right.
It is a faked film. So regardless of the reason why, because people have said, well, Jeran, maybe they did the test, but after they missed a piece of footage, I said, that's fine. I agree. I'm not saying that they went out and said, because I believe the Earth's a sphere. So I certainly don't think they went out with the purposeful intention of fooling flat earthers. But I do understand why flat earthers can think that way. Right. It's very easy to see. This is a very dumb editing mistake because you have 2 scenes with birds flying through them. They're identical. In one scene there's a helicopter, in the other scene there's not. So now it just blows the whole thing open. You can't count on any of it. Is this scene real? Is that scene real? No, somebody CGI'd the water onto the scene for some reason. Nobody can figure that out. So again, once you've seen this, and you see those are the same scene, look at the water. Once you've seen that, I want you to see what the head of Ars Technica says when he is doing a video to flat earthers, where he calls into question their mindset and says, what drives this inability for them to face reality? But then he shows this exact test. So as a flat earther, you're going to see that as a direct assault on you. That it's faked, we know that. Then you've got a guy saying, what drives flat earthers not to believe great evidence like this? And it's fake. So that's a problem. Again, it doesn't mean that science is against them. It just means that sometimes they know the Earth's a sphere, right? So let's say they get out there, and my prediction is correct, that they couldn't hide the helicopter behind 6 miles worth of water because of a 3-foot telescope height. It kept coming down, they kept seeing the top of it, and then they just said, we'll edit it in post. The Earth's a sphere, we know that. We're just educating people. Right. The problem is, does that create more of a problem than it does a good thing? You can turn on the volume on this one. This is another thing.
It worked. I'm not a scientist, and to be able to just do that.
She's on the program saying she's not a scientist. But she's here a year earlier.
I received my master's in biology
saying
at
she's a
Cal
scientist.
State East Bay in Hayward, California.
So
I was offered an internship at KQED, which is a PBS
it even
channel.
says scientist.
I was also able to do an internship at the University of Alabama in herpetology.
But yet she's on the film a year later
water snake and
saying,
python.
I'm not a
2 years
scientist.
later, I got another internship in neurobiology.
So I tried to talk to her, I tried to reach out to her to get an answer. She ended up blocking me.
I studied 3-day-old chicken embryos.
So this whole film was a big problem, and it's brought up as probably the number one evidence for flat earthers.
Bill Nye the Science Guy, Carl Sagan for the work he did.
Yeah, thank you. And then there's one other. So then the other girl, the Asian girl that was with her, who the show bills it as 3 ordinary people. We went and got 3 ordinary people to prove the shape of the Earth. Well, this girl's a scientist saying that she's not. The other girl, supposed to be ordinary, she's the head of storytelling, video storytelling at NASA Goddard. So that's not a good thing to do, because when you just look up her name and you see head of media storytelling at NASA Goddard to a conspiracy theorist, you've just given them so much ammo. They're going to stay that way. That girl there, she's and this guy's a teacher, which I guess is an ordinary person. But she works, Joy NG, or I don't know how you pronounce the last name, is not an ordinary person. She works at NASA as a head storyteller. So there you go. She's, and she talks about science storytelling is what she loves to do. So yeah, this is the scene I just wanted to show you. Again, this proves that something didn't happen there. Something is not right. And that's a problem. So to me, I want to try and get people to realize the importance of making good quality experiments that people can repeat, especially in this case, because you'll actually hear Timmer say, no, ordinary people don't have a helicopter. They don't have these things to do these tests, and it's true. But when you say that and then you fake it, well, then you're kind of basically gaslighting. First-hand experience shouldn't be so important, but it is to a conspiracy theorist, because when I see something like that, that's why if it would have been somebody else who went down to Antarctica, I can't be sure that I would have accepted what they came back and said. Because of now it's me, it's different. I went down and saw it myself. It's a fact. There's no arguing what I saw. And people can say it's fake. You're like, no, I know what the sun looks like. It's the sun. It was there for 4 days. I don't know if where's the Timmer video. So why mockery doesn't work? Again, you're not going to want to stay somewhere when somebody's calling you names, right? It's just obvious. So there's a lot of debunkers on YouTube that their kind of goal is to make fun of flat earthers. Now, I found out when we're down in Antarctica, and I even questioned one of them. I said, nobody watches your channel. Nobody watches it because of how you are. I said, you're not actually recruiting any flat earthers. And he flat out said, I'm not trying to. I said, oh, I thought that's what you'd be. He's like, no, I'm providing entertainment to globe believers who think flat earth is silly. And then also I'm making you out to be so dumb that nobody who's getting into this wants to become a flat earther. And it made more sense to me. I'm like, oh, okay, I see. And the way I think of YouTube is anybody should be able to do whatever they want. Meaning that if that's what then that's on him. So I don't think you should be able to tell him, don't do that, do this way, go against what. No, if that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. But from a flat earther's perspective, there wasn't enough actual scientists coming out and speaking on the issue. So what you would see is these guys who are globe earth proponents, well, you have to remember, they're just people, so they get things wrong. Well, when they would get things wrong, flat earthers would take that as the establishment of science was wrong, right? Oh, you're lying, science is lying. Well, no, this is just some guy who lives in Michigan, got something wrong, said something wrong. And I think that's one of the things that just, flat earthers need to be explained things simply. It needs to be like holding their hand, to be honest with you. Because anything that's too high level, they just dismiss. And anything that can be explained away with just, basically hand wave dismissal, they'll do that. So some of the things I've been trying to do is show people over and over again where they can figure it out on their own. That's my kind of goal, is because I understand the distrust of authority. So I'm trying to tell them that I didn't need any authority in anything that I did. As far as going to Punta Arenas and seeing the sun set right to left, nobody needs to be an authority to tell me that. There's no scientists involved, there's no government involved. Watching the sun do that. Same thing is true with the South Celestial Pole. What's below at the South Pole? Nobody needs to tell me that. I can figure that out on my own. Knowing that the Tropic of Capricorn goes to the left and not to the right. Again, the Tropic of Capricorn isn't man-made. It is a fact of life, that's the furthest south that the sun goes. I don't need government to tell me that. I can go and interview those people or stand there on December 21st and see where there's no shadow and know that that's the tropic. So I'm trying to convince people that are afraid of authority that you don't need them. And in fact, I'm trying to even say at this point, it's impossible to fake the shape of the earth. I think that this is something I just found out, that I thought it was possible, and now I realize it's not even possible. You can't fake the shape of the earth because people make observations. And if you lived on a flat plane with a sun going around it, and you tried to trick people and tell them that they live on a sphere, as soon as they got on the sphere and looked at the sun going around, they would immediately say, hey, this doesn't jive with a sphere. And they would know they don't live on a sphere. The problem is when you map the earth on a sphere, it's the only time it works. There is no other time it works. You can put the earth on a flat ground, you can put it on a triangle, you can put it on a cylinder, and no matter what you do, it does not jive with observations anymore. There is one shape that jives with observations. It's a sphere. So when you have the North Pole and the South Pole, and these, so one of the main things about flat Earth is the South had to be a lie. I showed you the map earlier. The center, I said the North is the same. The South is vastly different. Vastly. I mean, you're talking about lines of longitude in the South being maybe 30 miles on a globe, but actually being 120 miles on a flat Earth, which is just enough in and of itself to dismiss the idea. So really what it comes down to is giving people a chance to learn what they can believe in and what do they use to weigh what's right and what's not. And I think that that's something I want to try and help people get to the point of. I would love in the future to go places maybe as observatories or at NASA and actually try and bridge the gap and show my audience, here, look at this is real. Look at this. We are looking at Mars. We are, because a lot of times it's just easy to dismiss if you're somebody who's never goes out. You're always at home and you don't actually do anything. It's just easy to dismiss. More real world testing is needed. I think anytime somebody's hands on, you guys probably know when you're down at the Salton Sea, it helps when people are there. They see it. It's just a little bit more real. Science must be honest and transparent. Another one of my goals talking to John Timmer is I said, can we get PBS to go do that again? Said it would just be a good thing that people would all watch it, it'd be very popular, and let's go help hide the helicopter again, get it right, the distance if we need to go further to get the helicopter to hide behind it. But I think that would show a good bridge there. Truth must matter more than pride. I mean, that's the hardest thing, right? So I have to face myself every day knowing that I spent 10 years, I don't like to say lying, because I wasn't lying, but I was definitely telling things that were not true and pushing things that were not true, right? Actually advocating for the untruth of those things. So why the scientific method works, obviously, the new flat earth idea is they say, we don't make claims, we don't have a model. And so my thing to them is, okay, go home, sit down, because you're not allowed in scientific inquiry, because science is the making of claims. I'm going to make a claim, and I'm going to back it with this evidence, and then you figure out which claim best matches reality based on the evidence that's given. So that's really what we should be doing, and I think that people care a lot more about being right, and I think they dig their feet in. This is why I started 5-6 years ago telling them, don't fight with your family over this, please. I said, because if you call your brother a moron and he calls you a retard, you're both going to dig your feet in, and neither of you is going to allow any evidence to come in from the other side, because it then means if you're wrong, that you are the retard. Or if I am wrong, I'm the moron. So I saw families break up all the time. I saw people say, I don't talk to my parents anymore. I don't talk to my brother anymore over flat earth. So now hearing that, I had somebody call me the other day crying, saying that his wife left him years ago because of flat earth. And so, you all of a sudden realize the real world implications of faulty beliefs, and how if you have incorrect assumptions, then your beliefs are going to always be wrong. Or at least they don't have to always be wrong. You could get lucky. But more times than not, if something's faulty, meaning like for me, thinking that the South is a lie, well then everything that I base on that is going to be wrong, because the South is the truth. The South is the opposite of the North, completely just the opposite, a complete flip. And if you've got the North is exactly the opposite of the South, what other shape does that besides a sphere? So a call to, oops, what did I say? Call to what? Embrace critical thinking. Right, so I'm just going to be trying to show people that I think that that's the best way. Like for one instance, one thing that I still, I obviously have big doubts now, but at the time I was a big moon landing denier. If you don't know who Dave McKeegan is, he's a YouTuber, excellent. He was on the trip with us, and him and I got to know each other well. He was, teaching me how to use an all-azimuth mount for the telescope, teaching me some other things. So he said, why don't we do a series where you bring your best moon landing hoax stuff, and I'll refute it. And we'll just go through a couple series. So we're going to do that in the next coming weeks, and I think that'll be excellent. And I probably think that I will change my mind. I'm not going to change it yet. I think it's better to wait for the evidence, right? And so when I see the evidence that refutes my points, I think it'll be great to show that in real time. Or maybe I'll show him things that he can't refute, and we go from there. Who knows? But it will be good to see. And I think that those kind of things, what we're doing there is we're bridging what is otherwise a divide, right? There's a divide between the science side and the science deniers. And if they're never meeting eye to eye, or they don't do things together, it's just easy for the other side to dismiss it. When Pastor Duffy had this idea, it was bring flat earthers together with globe earthers together. Let's go down there as one. Immediately, all the animosity goes away. The hateful words that are said online, now we're together, nobody hates each other. All of a sudden, people are friends, talking, laughing. We go down Antarctica together, and there's no arguments, there's no fighting. It's just people actually doing science. And for the first time, I got to see globe earthers prepared 50 times more than we were. Meaning notebooks, notepads, cameras, everything that you could possibly need in case things failed. They had something else. They weren't faking anything. They weren't tricking us. They were there to do science. And I think seeing that was eye-opening, because you don't think of them that way. You think of them as like sitting around a table figuring out how they're going to attack flat Earth next, when really they are doing science. They don't care about flat Earth. They're just trying to show people what's true. So reality does win. You have to keep an open mind. I believe that you have to keep an open mind. I think what a lot of science people have said is kind of, so now do you know that everything that you believed in that was fake is real? I'm like, well, some things, yes, but I said, no, other things I want to wait and get to the bottom of. I don't think there's a remote control car on Mars. That's me. Now, if there is, I think it'll be shown to me that it is true. And I think now, looking at things differently, I'll get there, right? This just happened in December, so it's only been 2.5 months. I think I've made great strides in at least admitting that I need to relook at those things. And I think people even hearing that is new, right? For conspiracy theorists, they hear moon landing and they all think it's fake, and that's just that. So when you have somebody who believe that saying, oh, I'm going to talk to Dave McKeegan about it, we're going to look at, they get immediately scared. They're already scared of that. They don't want to see that happen. Because you don't want that chink, like I said, that block in your brain that was kicked out for me. I think some people cognitively know that that's there and they don't want to let anything in. It's kind of like the Christians who say anything that comes from outside the Bible is from Satan. Right. That's the way of protecting their beliefs, right? So if you ever try to bring something up that they don't agree with, they just say that's from Satan, dismissed. And it really works the same way for a flat earther. Why changing beliefs is a strength, not a weakness? That's just going to be me trying to explain that to people. Again, like I said, the entire community of flat earthers has either said that I've sold out or I've been purchased, and that's very scary. You'll never get out of that belief then, and I want to keep pointing that out to them, that is a recipe for misery for the rest of their lives, because if they're wrong, how would they ever know, right? So the way that you know when you're wrong is when evidence is brought to your attention that doesn't meet with your current beliefs, and then you should change your beliefs to match the evidence, and that's not what happens. That's what I said. The next one. Breaking free from the need to be right, that's a problem with the internet that I'm not sure how you get rid of. It just becomes, people, I've seen it a million times, when they state something, they'll just stay on that. It's like they're afraid that if they change their mind on that their audience will see that as a weakness. And so they stick to their guns, whatever they came out and originally said. And I've seen ridiculous things that people have said that they just keep on because they're afraid of being wrong. And that's on both sides. And just keep asking questions and keep testing. So if you guys have any questions, I'll take those if you want. But you can find me on YouTube on Jeranism.
Well done. Well done.
So come check out the channel.
question.
No.
But if the Earth is flat, what's on the other side?
So I guess what I would say, if you asked me that 3 months ago, I would say that the Earth is all that there is, that we're kind of the basement of the universe, that there's nothing necessarily on the other side. That
No, but there's nothing under it?
just ground, it's just kind of like the Earth is all there is, right? So I would tell people before that they try and place us in a place, but really this is just our existence. We live here, and that there doesn't need to be something underneath it. Again, now that sounds silly, but even as I'm saying it, I'm like, how did I ever do that? But again, it's like you have something in your brain that would rather make something up that gets by than to actually seriously take that into account. Because now you're saying that it just sounds ridiculous. I'm thinking to myself, like, what do you mean it's the bottom of the universe? And what's underneath it? So that's
turtles.
It's hard to turtles all the way down, right? Exactly. Yes.
You'd mentioned that you came to Flat Earth by a process with your wife, and you mentioned coming to Flat Earth when you and your wife decided to question fundamentals and things like that. What's been her journey on this topic?
She was right there with me. We both became flat earthers. She was involved, did a podcast with me, and then because of the way people are online with comments and stuff, they're terrible. I mean, YouTube is like the bottom of society as far as the comments go. So once I saw people start attacking her, I told her, hey, I'd rather you just sit out and not do this, because women have an issue, and I don't know if it's all women, but at least ones on YouTube, that they love to read the comments no matter how terrible they are,
right.
And they take them to heart. And guys can usually, I can not look at them and just not care, know that there's going to be people saying negative things. She couldn't do that. So I kind of told her, I'll just do this. But then as soon as I found out about the final experiment, we were kind of outside talking, and I just kind of walked her through what was going to be happening. And she agreed. She just said that, yeah, if you see the sun circle, it's impossible that the Earth could be flat. And we knew that. So she was excited about it. We felt good that we would know one way or the other. We would get back from the trip, and either the sun would set and the world was going to change, was my opinion, or the sun would circle, and at which point we needed to change our opinion and our belief.
Two quick questions. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful talk, and I am so glad you came here. I really appreciate it. Two quick questions. I've been in this world for a very long time, not the flat Earth, but the world of understanding scientific skepticism, and I think we need to be very empathetic to people. Because we've all been on this journey, haven't we, you guys? We've all been here believing things and then find out later they're not always correct. But number one, is there money in the world of flat Earth belief? I mean, obviously there's got to be a lot of money in YouTube subscriptions. And number two, why does it seem to be so male-centered? I mean, I know there are some women you see, but you can almost name them on one hand. But it seems to be, everyone seems to be male on the whole everything.
My reason for that might be kind of strange, but I think it's because what I noticed is the people that are flat earthers on YouTube are almost like the description of people on their grandmother's basement. The way people describe that is kind of real. I mean, it's a lot of people at the lower ends of society. Maybe they're frustrated that they've been removed from groups, or that they are segregated or secluded. So the problem with that is I think those people attack women for whatever reason. So what happens is if a woman does show up and start talking, the people who make comments and watch will attack that person to a point where a guy can kind of take it and maybe give it back. And women are just not good at that, and they take things to heart, and I think that they come and go. So I've seen women come and they just leave.
Even believers? I mean, that also believe, so they're just renting them out just because
they're... Or they think that they're, they'll just call them a plant, or they'll even call them a man, is the thing. And I mean, that's my own personal opinion. I think that these people have never... so let's say you are somebody living in your mom's basement and you don't get out much, and now the internet allows you to be a person that you can't be in real life. So these people, for instance, they've never turned a woman down. So now when there's a woman in front of them, they can attack that woman, and they get the feeling like, I just dismissed that good-looking woman by calling her a man, or whatever. And I think it's just like I've seen it. I've seen people do it. It's disgusting, but it's the way that some people are.
Jeran, to follow up to that question, though, I haven't been there, but I've seen pictures from flat Earth conventions. Would you say that's true at the conventions as well, or are there more female presence at the convention?
I'd say there's definitely more female presence. I mean, I've looked at my YouTube stats, and I think it's like 92% male, 8% female is my viewership.
Wow.
But I think in conferences it's probably closer to 60-40.
Because they come with a man.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily women going by themselves.
Very rarely, yeah, I haven't seen that.
That was a very good answer. Thank you for being honest. Because
Yeah,
I've
no,
always
it's
been
kinda scary.
interested. Same in the UFO community. The UFO community is extremely male.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if it's the same thing. I'm sure there's a lot of infighting. It always becomes that. Here's the thing: when you have a distrust of authority, you immediately have a distrust of everyone else, right? And that causes the self-destruction of these communities, because as soon as somebody believes something different than you, which should be okay, right? Spencer and I might have different beliefs, a lot of different beliefs, but we can still coexist. But online, what happens is, if somebody's got your beliefs together and all of a sudden he says something different about a subject, then I look at him with the eye of, oh, you're a shill. Somebody sent you in, you're working for the other team, you are what they call controlled opposition. So they think that people are put in there, which is actually true in life, that does actually happen, but maybe not on the YouTube scale like people think it is. People think, I've been saying recently, like, people don't get paid off like that. This is the whole lot, they say I've been paid off. I'm like, you would never, the government, if they had these secrets, would never come to me and tell me the secrets, which is what paid off would be like, Jeran,
Right.
the earth is actually flat. Here's $10 million to go away. Just the government wouldn't do that, because now I know the secrets and I can go and tell people, and we don't have people coming out like that. So the government, if they do have secrets, is much better off not telling people. But your block in your brain has to come up with a reason why his belief is different than yours. So the best way to go is that he's a shill and he works. And then the fact that maybe him and I have never met in real life, if you're on the internet, is another thing. That these people will throw each other. I've seen it happen to me, people that I've known for 10 years, friends, would think they're friends, but I've never met them. And they just can so easily throw you under the bus and dismiss you. That doesn't happen as much in real life, because you actually have to face people, right? If you're threw family under the bus, well, you got to go to Thanksgiving with them, you got to go to Christmas. So that doesn't happen in real life. But on the internet, I mean, I don't know how we handle the internet. I think it's terrible. I think TikTok is terrible. The other day I was showing on my show, if you just search Antarctica on TikTok, almost every video that comes up is fake. And I realize, I'm looking at it like, man, if I consider myself, let's say, the middle of the intelligence out of 1 to 100, then that means there's 50 people less intelligent than me. And then I have to start looking like, man, I bet you 20 of those 100 believe those videos, which is enough to be scared about. Because with AI now, you can actually make voices that sound like news reports. And so everything that people is now consuming, it becomes very difficult for people to determine what's real and what's fake. So I think that's scary. And then the fact that, there's people on YouTube that would go every day and they would get on their channel and say they call me a pedophile. Well, that doesn't happen in real life, because you can't go to your job and call somebody a pedophile. Without evidence, the person's going to confront you. If you do it the next day, you're fired. Right. On the internet, it's allowed. There's no, YouTube allows it. It's not even against YouTube's rules. So somebody can go on their channel every day and say, Jeran's a pedophile, and I'm just stuck having to either defend myself, and then if you start talking, no, I'm not, then people look at that as funny. Why are you even answering this person? So it becomes a very, I don't know how we fix that, though.
Let's do the one last question here.
Hi, Jeran. I just want to say I really appreciate your search for the truth, because I think that's why we're all here on different journeys. But I do have a question. I'm not very familiar with flat earthism, but I was just wondering, do you extend that, or do the flat earthers extend that belief to other celestial bodies? Are they all flat? Or
no, they would think that they call them lights in the sky. I mean, they basically say that we don't know what they are, that, if you see like a lot of telescope views, your at-home telescope is going to show Saturn as a light with rings, or a planet with rings, but it's, from a flat earther's perspective, they're going to say, well, we don't know the size of that. We don't know what it is. We don't know that you can go and actually see it or stand on it. And then the things that they would look at from, I know you can't stand on that because it's gas, but that's their opinion, is that they think these things are much smaller and that they're basically orbiting around the top of us. And it's a belief that even repeating now doesn't sound like I ever could sell it to anybody. I don't know how I ever did. But it is hard to explain, and I would write a book if I could ever explain it. Your brain opens up finally to allow that information in. And so what happened to me in the South was that now when somebody asks something, my brain is thinking about things a different way. It's not twisting what you're telling me for me to give you an answer that fits what I believe. It's rather telling you what, I'm telling you what they believe, but I don't even know how I've ever said that before. They're just lights in the sky. It's like, well, clearly they're not just lights in the sky. But if you had asked me that 3 months ago, I would have said, yeah, that they're just lights in the sky. We don't know the distance of them. We don't know exactly what they are. We think NASA's lying to us, and so they're just making up stories. That's what they believe, and that's the problem, right? Is that you can't get through to somebody like that. So it took, unfortunately, somebody paying $35,000, and I get there's people out there that are like, don't congratulate Jeran. He's guilty of doing this, and then he got given a trip for free for not believing in something, and nobody should get rewarded for that. I understand all that. I'm very thankful for Duffy offering the trip. I jumped at it the second I was offered. It wasn't like these other guys who turned it down. Because the reason I jumped at it is because I realized that I would know one way or the other. So I was different than them in the way that I would understand evidence that was right in my face. And clearly the other two flat earthers that went don't have that ability because they're still remaining flat earthers, even though they saw exactly what I did. They've just gone to the idea that we don't know what the earth is, we don't know what the sun does. And even though we know exactly what the sun does, it's like, I asked somebody the other day, they're like, we don't know what the sun does. I'm like, what astrological sign are you? They're like, Pisces. I'm like, okay, then we know what the sun does.
Well, you just made a point that I wanted to make, which is that, well, we've interacted before.
Yeah.
You know, you came on my show. And
how's Carrie, by the way? Is she going? How's Carrie? Is she good? I haven't talked to her in a while.
Yeah, that's a long story.
Oh, okay.
But I know she'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
And one thing I would always tell people is like, Jeran was able to interact and do it civilly and really talk about evidence and was really interested in the truth. And I think you are to be commended for that reason. A, because you took that trip, and B, because as you said, other people went on that trip and were not able to make that change.
Right.
You were. And now you're in a really powerful position, even as much as you've acknowledged there are some people you can't reach. You now have this amazing standpoint and platform and experience to speak more to people than any of us in the room ever could. Yeah. So thank you for continuing your channel. Thank you for speaking to the truth that you found. It's so powerful.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. This is the first time I've given a presentation. Not a flat earth presentation.
No, fantastic. I'm really impressed. Thank you everyone for coming out today. This has been an amazing conference. Thank you to all of you.
I know this dude named Jeran and he's looking real fine. And no, I'm not a homo, but I gotta try to make him mine. Cause he holds all of the secrets that the ancients once kept. But the way to Jeran's heart is proving you have once leapt from a volcano or a cliff or an airplane into danger without fear, crying, screaming, waking babies in their mangers. He can smell your fear from 1,000 miles away. And if you try to deceive him, well, today's your last day. You can bet he doesn't want a coward or a liar coming up to him saying, can you be my friend? Maybe you can man it up and lay it down in front of him, show him you're strong enough to go out on a limb. He's got enough ladies lining up around the block to fill 747's loading up around the clock. A lot of men are crying every single day, praying for a Jeran day, but they can't afford the price to pay. All the women want him and all dudes want to be Jeran, but the fact of the matter is, there's only one Jeran. He's got an internet following that forms a giant group. He can translate ancient tablets using alphabet soup, which he rarely even does, though it fetches big money. He doesn't even need it cause he sweats pure honey. His fans send him gifts, make him gifs, jump off cliffs, just for the once-in-a-lifetime honor of seeing Jeran take a sip of his famous oat stew. That's right, he's a stew chef. You may say, what's a stew chef? Well, you've probably never seen a stew chef, cause there's only one stew chef, and it's Jeran cooking it up. He's known for only filling friends and family's cups with his decadent sludge that he boils all night, every night, all night, every night. It's out of sight. He can do a dance that makes everybody pee their pants and make a mess and cause stress. He's on a mission with the Jerry Berry Blitz and the Jerry Berry Twist. He's riling up the world. You can do the Jerry Berry Blitz and the Jerry Berry Twist. You can imitate the best just like the rest. Come on, Jeran, show the world what you got now. He's gonna show you his dance, he's gonna show you his skills, his dancing skills. Check him out, y'all. Jeran's powers grow with every fight, and every fight that he fights, he destroys his opponent and leaves a sticky mess on the ground. He wages war when provoked, and when provoked, he starts to smoke out of his butthole, and that's when you run away or die. Cities topple, buildings
buildings fall, mountains melt, and rivers stall. When Jeran says so, cause he does what he wants when he wants. Sovereign nations all bow down when Jeran comes around. They know they can't match his skills, yeah, they've all heard this song. He's lived for thousands of years and caused innumerable tears and broken so many hearts, I just don't know where to start. His flow's unbreakable, swagger unshakable, his style's impeccable, and you can't do anything when he competes at Pizza Prize Bowl. Girls want to marry him, but a mate would only slow him down. And besides, you know that he would never ever share his crown. He's left everyone he's met depressed, torn up, and so forlorn. What's scary is you haven't even seen his final form.